This was a good week of chapters, with more insanity coming from One Piece, and everything else settling into a nice groove, with some big turn of events. So we'll be starting off with One Piece, chapter 1060, and this was a great chapter, showing a myriad of things, starting with the Straw Hats reading the newspaper and finding out about everything that's gone wrong in their absence, such as Sabo killing Cobra and Vivi's disappearance. We could see many of the Straw Hat crew, especially attached to Vivi, are very concerned about these turn of events, where Zoro is keeping a level head, though still concerned, just not quite as outwardly concerned, reminding them that everyone has their own adventure to live, and they will only show up when there is an absolute need for them to. So he reminds them to let Vivi, who's strong in her own right, handle it herself until she can't, and then they will go. So what we have is everyone agrees but still yells at Zoro for being insensitive, before we get the reveal that Luffy's dream is not just to become Pirate King, it's actually something else, and he needs to become Pirate King to achieve his dream. Everyone is very stunned by this new proclamation of his dream, but they do not tell us what his dream is, and thus it is a mystery for now. Something that I don't think anyone's going to get right. It'll just be something that only Oda and, to an extent, Luffy know. So they talk about how ridiculous it is and that it's impossible to do, but Luffy is determined to do whatever he set out to do. And so they're getting ready to set sail full on to their next grand adventure and to find a way to find the final poneglyph. It then cuts to Sabo calling the rest of the revolutionaries and explaining himself that he did not kill Cobra, but what he found was far worse, and that it's the throne at the Castle Pangea that is supposed to be empty was not. However, we find that the island he's at, because the Marines had intercepted the communications, is a kingdom that had a revolution, and so the Gorosei are seemingly lamenting that it was poor choice and unfortunate for them, but knows what's coming next, which was that Emu seemingly blocked the communications team from hearing what Sabo had to say, or even just cutting off the snail and to begin with, and raining down some sort of hellfire upon the island and proclaiming that that island never existed, that the kingdom never existed at all, and says that just no one's going to remember it, showing just how powerful Emu is, having it that he could just destroy an island without even batting an eye. And he has so much influence that I guarantee most people will now not know what this island once was, leading it to that Emu is the one that destroyed God Valley. Now it still leads it to be what was or at God Valley that made Emu need to destroy it, but we now know how it disappeared and was destroyed. We then cut back to the Straw Hats one final time, about a week later I think it said, as they're still traveling to their next island, which seemingly is a major winter one, when they see some sort of giant water air pocket that's floating in the air for whatever reason. Zoro cuts it, and we find out that Jewelry Bonnie was within this air water current, and now we get to have Bonnie on the crew for a while, the last or second to last Worst Generation member, to now get her story with the Straw Hats. I think it would be rather interesting to see Jewelry Bonnie join the crew, seeing as how her crew is now gone, leading it that the Straw Hats have 3 of the Worst Generation. I think that would be a rather funny thing to have happen, but we'll end up seeing, as she's now most likely going to be rescued by them, and we'll get to hear what her explanation of things that happened at the Reverie are. So a lot of excitement upon the horizon and a lot of interesting developments being made within every chapter. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A. It was great seeing the continued development of everything going on and how the world is getting crazier and crazier the closer the Straw Hats and all of the other pirates are to getting the One Piece. Things are developing rapidly, and every chapter is filled to the brim with information. That every chapter from here until probably the bulk of whatever the next story is going to be extremely dense. probably better quote-unquote content for the anime, because you can stretch this out a little bit, let it breathe. But for now, we're getting a lot of information in a short amount of time. This chapter in particular showed us that Emu's power is not to be stopped by any real means, so it'll be interesting to see how Dragon confronts this, as well as seeing that a new crew member might be joining the crew, with Bonnie being rescued by the Straw Hats, as well as their promise to save Vivi if she needs it. So a theory I had thought would happen would be we would get another Marineford where the Straw Hats are playing the role of Whitebeard and assault the new headquarters of the Marines to save Vivi with the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Still could be a very big possibility, but we'll have to see how this goes. If they're going to do a public execution type thing, or if she's now just going to be a slave on Pangea Castle in Marijo's, and they have to then invade Marijo's to save all of them or something. There's a lot of different outcomes for this Vivi story that we're not going to get for now. But for now, we're at least headed in a interesting direction, whether it's more world building or we are setting off on the next great Straw Hat adventure. Now we're on to Black Clover, chapter 338, and this was a good chapter, having Asta walk around the land of the sun and learning more about it with the Shogun, learning some of their terms and some of the different things that are different between the Clover Kingdom and this place, as well as seeing that this foe, Japan, uses scrolls instead of grimoires, and their magic is called something different. The grimoires are also called something different. So they fundamentally work the same, though they are just different in kind of cosmetic and I guess some levels of application. But overall, it's still just magic and whatnot. We then see that the Shogun does seem to have some sort of future sight to him, but he reveals he has no magic at all. And it makes sense, as Asta proclaimed earlier, that he did not sense anything from the Shogun, though this pissed off his bodyguard, who is revealed to be the little sister of Yami. Thus, we still get a Yami-esque character for Asta's grand training arc here. So it'll be very interesting to see if Asta gets attached / kind of acclimates himself here as he continues to train and grow stronger here for his eventual final battle with Lucius over in the Clover Kingdom. Like I said, with this reveal of this other continent, it makes me extremely interested in what the rest of the world potentially looks like and how many other areas of magic and unique things there could potentially be in the rest of the world. But for now, we at least know two, a more or less classic European world continent with the Clover Kingdom and the grimoires, and now the land of the sun, this foe Japan with scrolls and different things to do their magic. So a lot of interesting things and a lot of exciting things with the training that's going to happen, and the fact that Yami's little sister doesn't like Asta very much is rather funny. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing more of this world and learning a little bit more of this current land he is in, as well as the Shogun and his bodyguard, the little sister of Yami. So the future chapters should be pretty interesting, though it is on break next week, so we'll have to wait a little longer to find out just how much more unique things he will learn here. So now we're on to Mission Yozakura Family, chapter 147, and this was a good chapter showing Teo training with the eldest brother to get him to be able to use his special technique for longer. We see that the eldest brother is, of course, pushing Teo too far, but Teo wants to get stronger as fast as he can, so he is more or less willing to do this. Eventually, the leader of the Spy Association kind of steps in and starts helping Teo grow stronger, even defying the eldest brother to do this. We get to see a little bit of the relationship between the eldest brother and the leader, seeing as how they're always fighting, but they're always right next to each other. And then we learn even a little bit more as Teo, after his brutal training session, ends up training with the leader to speed up his progression even faster, just through the fact that the leader is a normal person just like he is, trying to survive in a world of abnormal geniuses and supernatural beings. So he begins teaching Teo some things, and Teo is able to close the distance between him and the eldest brother. And just as though they were about to clash for an extended bit, an alert comes on, and we see that Shion has found Momo. So the next chapter should be their mission to try to get everyone back, and if I had to guess, it's not going to go well for them. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the continued relationship building between the eldest brother and Teo, as well as Teo and the leader, as it would seem my theory is probably right, where we'll probably get one more chapter of the eldest brother and the leader getting a moment to bond together, though we've seen them quite a bit more than many of the others, so it probably wouldn't take too much. And then we still have the youngest brother and his gold rank spy equivalent, so a lot of interesting things there. And I'm assuming in the next chapter we're probably going to lose Shion and Kengo to Momo, and Momo is going to be elated to have 4 of his family members back and will be more or less aggressive in his acquisition of the rest of them. So it'll be interesting to see what the next few chapters have in store, as this was another good training chapter and one last setup one for this next fight, which will potentially end in another defeat for the Yozakura family. So now we're on to Undead Unluck chapter 127, and this was a good chapter showing the first battle between the sun and the rest of the Union, as we see the sun just trying to stand up nearly destroyed the world, causing a huge earthquake and problems in the area. So things are not going well for the Union already, as we find out that the moon spirit is another god called Luna. So the sun and Luna are the 2 gods of this world that created everything. From what I can gather, Luna created negators and I guess the rest of humanity, where the sun created Umas and many of the land, I guess, maybe, and other things like that. So we have those 2 playing a eternal game to see which one is right, which creature they created for this world is the correct one, whether the Umas or the negators. So we now get to understand what this great game is all about and see what Luna wants in her way of winning. Like, what is her goal here, as Fuko is still having to withstand feeling the battle outside while being able to do nothing to help. Meanwhile, as we see the sun is just simply standing up, we see Andy and Juiz prepared to do whatever they can to stall him, and we see Chikara make his way up to the battlefield and use his unstoppability to stop the sun, which actually worked, which I was surprised by, only for the sun to do something to himself, seemingly shoot out a sun bullet, which then seemingly went around the world, destroying a full line of, like, the earth, and blasting off Chikara's arm, thus leaving him no longer using his ability, and so things are not going well. So this final battle is going to be extremely intense, as Fuko has to continue to wait, but she at least will learn the goals and objectives of Luna. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the overwhelming might of the sun, as well as seeing the mysterious motives of Luna, as we will still need to learn more of what Luna wants and what her goals are in telling Fuko all of this information. So there's still a lot to come and a lot of interesting things that'll happen, as we more or less will be watching everyone in the Union be brutally killed by the sun, just showing how outmatched they are. And for Juiz to see it firsthand for probably either the first time or one of the first times, just knowing how strong the sun is, it's going to be quite the battle when Fuko is able to amass quite the army for him. So now we're on to Mashle, Magic, and Muscles, chapter 124, and this was a good chapter showing the battle between the clown and Order. The 2 of them are polar opposites, as Order is all about order, not himself, the actual following the rules, and the clown is all about freedom. So we see their battle is that the clown chains the 2 of them up by the ankles and they can't move until one of them is dead. then they will be unshackled and then they'll go about their way. Order calmly assesses the situation, attacking with sand on occasion, learning what the clown's magic is as well as what the setup is. The clown is getting bored with this style of fighting and starts breaking his own rules, which Order does not like, and continues to prove that he is the opposite of the clown. The two of them kind of battle back and forth philosophies, I guess, before ultimately being ready to full-on fight to their heart's content. It'll be interesting to see how Order is able to win this one, as he seems the most evenly matched with his particular child of Innocent Zero, and we'll see how this battle unfolds. But so far it's actually been pretty interesting to see just this divine visionary hold up toe-to-toe with one of the children of Innocent Zero, as before this all of the others failed miserably, in fact. So it's interesting to see that Order, I guess the strongest of the divine visionaries, is able to hold his own with one of the stronger members of Innocent Zero's army. So we'll see how this battle unfolds as things continue to escalate into ridiculous madness. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing Order hold his own and battle to and fro with the clown, and seeing just how powerful the clown is as well with his own ridiculous antics. The fact that they're polar opposites is rather fun, and we'll get to see more madness to come in this ridiculous battle. So now we're on to Sakamoto Days chapter 87, and this was a good chapter showing Shin's group finally succeeding and the teacher character kind of being proud of this ragtag group of makeshift assassins, with her teaching and complimenting all three of them. From the invisible guy, she tells him his invisibility tech is very impressive, but he needs to work to improve it, to get rid of sound and presence, allowing him to find a way to continue to tinker with his machines. She praised Akira for her pure talent, but she needs to foster that talent with good training and ability to grow, and she was able to help Shin find potentially a style of fighting that could help him, especially with his abilities. So it'll be interesting to see each one take that to heart and potentially where they could continue to train. I imagine Shin should probably go back to her specifically, as her style of fighting is probably perfect for him. Having it that he could see into the future, even just a few seconds, would make him be able to make the absolute perfect decision in his defensive fighting, that he could absolutely be the most talented defensive fighter this assassin world has ever seen. So it'll be interesting to see if he does that, as well as the invisible guy continuing to improve his cloak and Akira gaining more and more ability through her natural talent. She then reveals that the database is accessed through a nickname of an old colleague of hers from her student days, a classmate of hers, and then it snaps back to the kid who was fighting Sakamoto's grandfather. And I had just realized this as I was recording this, that she's meaning that he, because he has like photographic and auditory memory, he remembers everything like his grandson. He is the database. He's been there so long that he knows everything. So I'm guessing it's passed down through generation to generation of his type, I guess, as each one of them probably has a similar thing. And so he is the database. So I think that's actually really interesting if they're able to figure that out, as we see the database, her classmate, the janitor, talk to his grandson, and we see that he does care, and again, the kid is angry at his father and wants to get rid of him, and we see them bond a little bit as the janitor tells his grandson that he'll always side with his grandson, so if he ever needs to talk to someone. He also says that of the students he knows, the teacher, Sakamoto, that his grandson fought was the best fighter he had ever seen. So a lot of interesting things there, as well as then the kid, the janitor's grandson, calls back the deer head and agrees to shut down the security as long as none of the teachers and students are harmed in this attack. I don't believe it's going to hold up, but that was the promise that was made. We see that Slur never liked how the JCC always had preferential treatment for top students, and we see that the kid does in fact shut down the security. As all the security goes down, each person who's looking for the database is seen reacting to this event. And so I'm assuming that the director and Carolina Reaper, I think it was him, it might have been someone else, who are at the island are ready to attack. And we'll see if they succeed or not. And it'll be interesting to see what's gonna happen. If the entirety of even Slur's men might show up too, all of his executives, and thus the massacre is going to be massive, as he'll probably try to push away the kid who infiltrated them. What I'm assuming is they'll all arrive, the battle will be fierce, and he'll find out that the janitor is the database, thus killing the janitor, Slur will, in front of the kid, and the kid will then no longer side with Slur. It'll either be Slur or the father, the kid's father, killing the grandfather in front of the kid with Slur's approval. Something insane's going to happen in this arc. I can just feel it. With now that the security is down, things are going to get more and more ridiculous as they happen. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the growth of our ragtag group of wannabe assassins able to achieve their task and learn a little something about the database. Us learning that the database is the janitor is actually a little bit more exciting than I thought, because I couldn't figure out what it was until basically just now. I could even be wrong. He could just be the only person that knows where it is, but I'm assuming I'm right. And seeing the fact that the kid did agree to this and shut down the security will make his eventual joining of Sakamoto a bit more interesting, as he'll have to try to overcome his guilt for what he let happen, because Slur's men are going to cause an enormous scene and massacre just about everyone. So it'll be a decision that he will regret, and Sakamoto will of course probably help him in the long run and train him to a degree. So it'll be interesting to see what's next in the next few chapters and how things unfold from here. So that was all of the chapters. They were all very good, with One Piece showing an absolute ton of information, Black Clover continuing to show more of the new continent that Asta is in, as well as the fact that he is still dealing with quite a bit of trauma from his battle. We'll see if he can overcome that. Mission Yozakura family had a good training arc, and we're going to head into a very pivotal arc, having it that we're about to fight Momo for a second time. Undead Unluck was good, as Ragnarok has truly begun, and there doesn't seem to be anything that anyone can do to stop it, or barely even delay it. Mashle was good, as the fight between the clown and Order is going to get more and more chaotic and explosive in the next few chapters, and Sakamoto Days continues to build to this big moment where Slur reveals he is a really bad person, even more so than he's already shown. So now for everything else, My Hero was fine. The plot twist, or the big moment that everyone talked about with Mirio, isn't as bad as I thought, as it's used as his one great power is to be funny, according to Sir, and so he uses that ability once again, showing just how little Shigaraki thinks of him, and this delay allows Deku to arrive to save the day. Whatever, this battle will be big, bombastic, and Deku will win. It'll be fairly boring. Blue Box was fine. The Elusive Samurai was good, as the battle continues to intensify as each of the enemy generals continues to fight each of the heroes' generals. And the battling should be more and more interesting, and it'll be interesting to see who wins this pivotal contest. P times 6 was good, showing that there is an evil Lucky inside of Lucky, as it seems as though educating Lucky on what's good in the world kind of lost his talent to a degree, where when Lucky didn't have much and just felt the experiences around him, he was a genius piano player. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in this contest when he goes up there. Will evil Lucky show up, if that's even possible? As good Lucky is starting to try to get better at piano, it seems as though his talent is starting to emerge, which I think is very interesting and exciting to see if there's like an evil Lucky that he has to try to keep under control. There's some good that could be coming in the next few chapters of P times 6, so I look forward to seeing where it could possibly go. Super Smartphone was good, as we learn more about the smartphone in general, as well as the alliances formed with the three main characters here, the two newcomers, and our titular main character, as well as we see the seeming designers of the smartphone, two alien-ish people, though they are in human form, they act as if they've never been on Earth before. And they talk about how this whole thing is just a contest to see who's going to save the world, I guess, and they believe it is the main villain. Aliens area was good, as we saw more of the leaders of the police and see that each faction has a way of dealing with the terrorist group that destroyed the bar last week, and seeing how they really don't like each other, and it'll be interesting how they interact going forward if their plan to take down the enemy villain group is successful to proceed or not. And Ginka and Luna was good. As the series continues, its adventures continue to grow more entertaining, giving me a real fairy tale vibe where they're just going out and exploring. And the snowman character, Ginka, is interesting, as he doesn't seem quite as good, and it would be interesting if he ended up being some evil villain in the end. But for now, they're just going about and adventuring, trying to get Ginka his body back. So, it was a great week of chapters. A little odd that they came out a day late, but overall it was still very good. With everything continuing to move forward, and a lot of the younger series continue to be very interesting. I don't think anything's at risk right now, though that could change very quickly. But for now, I think a lot of these manga are in a good spot, and I look forward to each chapter. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.